and welcome to this very special Etsy up video. I'm Catherine, illustrator and director here at Catnip Studios. I can't quite believe it, but it has been over 8 years since I started my Etsy business, Catnip Studios. We have accumulated over 81,000 sales on Etsy. I can't quite believe it myself. It's a little small family run business with me, my husband Dean, and my brother-in-law Mike. In this video, I'm actually going to be talking through how I built the wonderful world of Catnip, and although I feel like I'm just getting started with my small business, I have over the last 8 years developed my brand to hopefully have like a cohesive and aesthetic theme. In this video, I'm going to be talking through what I've learned over the 8 years to build my own brand voice. My journey started very differently to what it looks like now, and I'm going to be taking you along with me and sharing how exactly I developed my style to where we are today. To build a brand, I believe it's important to have a vision, but if you're just starting out or thinking of opening your very own small business, don't be disheartened if you haven't got a super clear vision in mind just yet. I'll talk about this in a second, but my vision is drastically different now to what it was when I started out. Here at Catnip, I am trying to tell visual stories with my adorable cute characters like Bumblebutt and Ginger, which you can see on the shelf behind me, by bringing them to a range of stationery, merchandise, and hopefully one day children's books as well. A lot of my inspiration came from pop culture, anime, manga, gaming, and things I was just naturally drawn to as a child. I've always loved illustrating and creating cute adorable characters since I was young. I knew I wanted to eventually develop my own characters and eventually have my own children's books and characters that put a smile on people's face. And one of the missions here at Catnip that we have is to create a feeling of happiness and joy when you look at our products. To me, I'm not just selling products, I want to sell a feeling as well. I want you to look at our adorable characters and kind of get a little bit of joy out of them. So ask yourself, what is your brand vision? This may sound intimidating at first, but really it's pretty simple. Ask yourself a few of these questions like, what do you want to sell? Who is your target audience? We will go into this in a little bit. And what is the feeling you want your brand to portray when people find you? For example, maybe you want to be cool, trendy, or minimalist, or maybe like me, you want to build a wholesome, family-friendly brand. Like I mentioned earlier, don't be too disheartened if you haven't got a very clear brand vision in mind. This is what this video is all about. When I started back in 2015, my style looked considerably different to what it does today. I had to develop my style over time and grow as an artist and illustrator to be able to do what I wanted to do in the long run. When I first originally started out back in 2015, I actually had a full-time and part-time job. I used to actually read the Etsy Quit Your Day Job blog series on Etsy with other inspiring artists and sellers and listen to their journey and how they managed to go full-time with their Etsy business. After getting inspired, I decided to take the plunge and open my Etsy store with the little skills and the knowledge that I had. So I actually began my journey by selling custom portraits. I then began experimenting and developing my style to what it is today, and it took daily practice and daily illustrations to get where I am. In the meantime, I kept selling custom portraits and experimenting with my products and what I wanted to sell here at Catnip, while I built up the skills as an illustrator to create these cute characters you can see today. My original goal for the Etsy shop was just to make a simple minimum wage that could sustain me and I could be fulfilled doing something that I loved doing. I studied graphic design at university and I knew the importance graphic design had on brands and logos. I'm still using one of the very first logos I sketched out for my Etsy business back in 2015. But one thing I learned along the way is the importance of brand colours and aesthetic. This can really elevate your brand to the next level and was one of the ways I made Catnip more distinguishable as a brand. I decided pretty early on that pastel colours was going to be the perfect aesthetic for Catnip. I wanted to create a wholesome, cute world filled with cute, adorable stationery stationery and characters, and pastel colours really worked well for this. And pink was one of the main brand colours I decided to use very early on, and also it was inspired by what I personally found appealing to me. Pink is one of my favourite colours, and pastel colours also work so well. If I use dark, grungy, gothic colours, it wouldn't be catnip and it wouldn't be that cute, wholesome feeling that I wanted to portray. So I learned very early on to stick to a limited colour palette. So ask yourself, what colours could represent your brand? What is your brand's vision? Maybe you are into minimalism, so white neutral tones may work for you and your brand. Maybe you're more into a gothic, dark, grungy feel. That way dark purples, dark blues, dark browns could be a great brand aesthetic for you. Just sit down and write down a few points of what your brand voice is going to be and what colours you can use to represent that brand voice. This also brings me on to my next point, which is get to know your audience. Your colours will also reflect your audience base. I personally was my own demographic, and I used myself and what I found cute and what I would personally purchase as a start to catnip. It's a good idea to build up a character profile of what exactly your ideal customer is. For me, for example, it was a female between the ages of 18 to 35 who had an interest in cute, wholesome characters and Japanese pop culture such as anime and manga. Narrowing this down really helped bring my brand colours and aesthetics together because I knew exactly what I needed my work to look like in order to appeal to my perfect customer. Now I had my logo and my brand colour and my target audience in mind, I began to take it a little step further and even draw in those little details even more by the use of using exclusive fonts. I actually made my own fonts and also found some fonts and got the licenses for those fonts to use across the board in catnip, so that each design or each product, each packaging had the same cohesive font throughout. That being said, these did change over time, and it's good to keep an eye on current graphic design or design trends in general. You'll often see big companies and little companies updating their brand image to keep in line with the modern day. Let's show a little example. Between 2015 and 2018, for example, I noticed big trends around animals and characters such as pugs, mermaids and unicorns. The use of slimline handwritten fonts were also pretty popular, so I was sure to keep on top of those trends and incorporate them in my product. That being said, it should still fit in with your brand voice and remain consistent with your overall theme of your brand. You shouldn't really be changing your brand and your fonts too often. I have definitely had around 2 slight brand changes throughout the course of these 8 years to keep up to date with modern design trends. You want to keep an eye on the trends that are in your niche and your audience demographic. Okay, we've got our brand and now it's time to start developing products. I didn't just experiment with illustration, I also experimented with my products as well. I had a big experimental phase where I really tried to niche down on what I wanted catnip to create. Ultimately, we have developed into kind of a lifestyle brand full of stationery, pins, and now we're branching out into clothing, hats and more. But it didn't start out like this. I developed and experimented with my products and often would invest in a lot of internal machinery and teaching myself how to use techniques such as sublimation to print my very own mugs, mouse mats and more. This way I could experiment with different designs and see what connected with my audience while not investing too much money in a bulk of products that I didn't know was going to sell. Really got me to understand the feel of my audience and what worked and what didn't. This allowed me to slowly invest in getting things like pins made in bigger quantities because I finally started to know my audience and connect with what worked for them. That being said, sometimes I do make products which I think are going to be like the best sellers and end up not doing so well. So if you're an existing Etsy shop owner, you've probably experienced this yourself, so don't be too disheartened. But also when you're starting out, it is great to experiment and also ask for feedback off your audience. See what they actually used to like. I used to ask a lot of opinions and still do to this day of what my audience want to see. So this can give you a really great insight on what people want to see from you. But you should also keep in mind what you want to do as well, but there has to be an audience there for you to sell your products in the first place. Again, this comes back down to doing your target market research and also looking at other brands in your niche and seeing what works for them and what their audience loves. In the meantime, while I was experimenting with my products and my style, I also started developing my social media presence. I started documenting my journey on YouTube very early on. I even implemented my brand voice even in the scenes that I used to film over on social media. I actually created my very own custom filter and colour palette that I would apply to most of my videos so that would also tie in with the brand voice. And when people seen a video of mine, they would see that it was connected to catnip because I even created my very own custom colour palette for the videos that I would shoot, bringing in all my brand together. So not only did my social media and behind the scenes match the aesthetic of catnip, but it also matched my products and brand voice. So even my behind the scenes, I was mindful to keep those colour palettes in mind. When I moved into my very first studio here at Catnip, I knew that I needed to bring those brand colours and all my brand voice into the studio as well. Because I shared behind the scenes, I wanted everywhere to look like it'd been touched with some catnip magic. And ever since that day, we have moved into several different studios but have always remained cohesive with our brand voice. One of the final touches that could tie up all of the brand aesthetics that we have talked about in this video is your packaging. You have built this brand, you've found your brand colours, you've brought it all together in your social media, you finally got a product to sell. The last piece of the puzzle is to package it all together. That new customer has trusted you with their money to get a beautiful product in return. So I add little touches like pastel pink tissue paper, one of the main colours here at Catnips. I tell you what, why don't we package a catnip order on our Etsy store together? Let's pack an order, shall we? I wanted to make sure that my brand didn't just end online. The order is the most important part, and I like to make my customers feel as though they are getting a special gift from Catnip. My branding and colour palette runs across all my packaging and products, even down to my shipping materials. We like to wrap our orders in pastel pink complimentary tissue paper and also add a seasonal free art print and card that the customer can collect throughout the seasons. This is the final piece of the puzzle that we hope makes a special customer experience when they choose to shop with us here at Catnip. So there we have it, a catnip order all packaged up and ready to go. So if you're thinking of starting an Etsy store, or maybe you have an Etsy store already and you feel like your brand isn't where you quite want it to be, don't worry, I am still changing and adapting and finding my own style. Having a small business is a journey, and I am learning new things every single week, even now to this day, to create my very own small business and the wonderful world of catnip. So I keep changing every day, keeping an eye on the trends and constantly trying to learn and reach out to all my customers and you guys to keep growing and developing the brand that I have. When I think and reflect about when I was in my full-time job and reading those Etsy Quit Your Day Job articles, it's quite surreal to me that I am sat right here with you guys, bringing you my own inspirational story about my own journey. The first thing you have to do is just get started and keep going and growing along the way, because if I can do it, a girl from a very small seaside town in the northeast of England, you can do it too. So don't wait until you're perfect to start, because there is just no such thing. You'll grow and develop along the way, and I hope you found this video inspirational or helpful in any way. I'll see you guys very soon. Alright then, thanks so much for watching. I love you. Goodbye!